Hello, everybody. Welcome to Statistics Solutions webinar on theory, why theory is important. We'll get started in a minute. Just a couple comments here to begin, or before we begin. We do have a co-host on, and she's going to be putting the link to our website, the link to where you can access not only this slide deck and presentation, but all of our other webinars where there are archived as well. And you will get a copy of the slides in email, I believe. And Sarah will post that soon. Yep, there it is. Okay, there it all is posted in the chat box. Great. Okay, so as we move through the webinar today, if you have questions, that's fine. We will have a question and answer session at the end. So we'll hold our, if you need to type your question into the chat box or to the, what am I trying to say? The question Q&A box, that's fine. But I just won't get to them until the end. Okay, so let's get started. Here's what we're going to be covering today. It's the overview. All right, why theory is important, theory in the research process, theory and research questions, the theoretical framework, because that's usually where, writing a dissertation, a social sciences dissertation, it's where you do the most work with the theory. Probably it's the theoretical framework, getting that together, and the importance of using, the right theory, okay, for your study. All right, theory is important to a dissertation. It doesn't get a lot of attention like other aspects of the dissertation get, like, the methodology, the literature review. There's certain components that really receive a lot of focus, and theory doesn't. And so that's why we thought this webinar would be helpful. But theory is nonetheless important. I mean, you can't really conduct a study without it. Here's some of the things it does. Generally, it provides a framework for understanding, right? So theories help explain or interpret or make sense of phenomena and data. They provide a way, or sometimes we're using the term framework, and we'll get to that in a little bit when we start talking about the theoretical framework. But generally, they provide a way for researchers to explain the connections between ideas, to explain the connections between variables, right? To explain data. It can help guide your research, right? So theories guide scientific inquiry, or your kinds of investigation that you're doing through studies, by providing a starting point for research questions and hypotheses. For example, if you're looking at something like college student retention, you might look to some theories to get you started, about how to start approaching the subject. You'll find something like engagement theory, which holds that students who are engaged in the academic community, who are engaged with college, don't leave. They are retained. So it's a way that can help you get started and guide you on where to look and what to investigate and what to ask. It can promote critical thinking. Theories encourage critical thinking by challenging assumptions sometimes, and encouraging exploration of alternative explanations or theories. By testing theories, we can develop a deeper understanding of a topic, or expand or extend theories, right? So sometimes, a theory can be tested to see if it applies to a certain situation, or applies to a certain population and a certain topic. And if we find that the theory is sound for that, it will, it can confirm that that theory, yes, is related, is good for explaining whatever that topic was, or whatever that, the subject of interest was. If it doesn't, pertain, or if it's not significant for that topic or for that population, or whatever it is you're looking at, it indicates that we might need to adapt a theory, modify the theory, or even get a new theory, right? So it can promote alternative ways of thinking, critical thinking. It also allows for prediction and interpretation. Theories help us predict the relationship between variables, or predict is a good word, or it lets us know what to expect based on the theory. If one thing, for example, if one factor predicts or leads to another one, right? Or if variables are related, these would, take the forms of hypotheses or expected findings. It helps explain or interpret data, right? So when you get to chapter 5 and you have to kind of discuss what you found, data is, without theory, data is kind of inert. It's kind of moot, which means, it doesn't kind of tell, it tells you things, but it can't interpret itself, right? So if you find, for example, if two factors or constructs are related, like transformational leadership and motivation, okay, the data, the analysis of the data tells you that they're connected, but it doesn't tell you why, it doesn't tell you how, it doesn't tell you anything about that connection. That's where theory is going to come in and help you. What does the theory say about motivation? What does it say about transformational leadership? Then you can start to think about what that connection means. So those are generally some of the things that theory can do, and we're going to talk about a little bit. But first, we have to go, we have to take a step back and think about what is theory, right? Because we talk about theory a lot, theoretical frameworks, but, what is a theory? What do theories do? What are they? Basically, a theory is an idea or a set of ideas, usually, or concepts that explain something, that explain a phenomenon, or that helps researchers explain things. And that's what they do. And they're based on research, right? So people don't just kind of, pull theories out of the air. I mean, it's usually based on a lot of research. It may even be based on previous theories. But there's a lot of thinking, a lot of theory, a lot of research, theorizing, and research that goes into creating theories. But that's what they do. They explain, they're a set of concepts that help explain things. So some examples, why do people act or behave the way they do, or what drives them to act? Those would be theories of motivation, right? There's motivation theories, why people act, or why are they driven to act in a certain way. Theories of motivation that help explain why people act. It may be that something aligns with their values, or that something has value to them, or what they expect to receive from that action, right? Theories of leadership. There's a lot of research on leadership. That's because leadership is still kind of a tough nut to crack. I mean, leadership is still an issue, right? There's still effective leadership, and there's still ineffective leadership, and there's toxic leadership, and there's all kinds of leadership. So that's why there's so much research on it, so many studies. So there's theories of leadership, right? What makes a good leader? What makes an effective leader? There's transformational leadership theory, there's transactional leadership theory. And so these theories help to explain leadership behaviors, right? So that's what theories do. They help us explain things. In studies like such as that you're probably writing for your dissertation, in studies, theory is presented as a framework, and that's to help you understand the constructs you're studying. It helps you to understand the relationships between the constructs that you're studying. And we'll cover the framework a little later in its own section. Data is moot, like I said, mute or inert without theory. In other words, data can't really speak for itself. I mean, you analyze the data, you come up with results. Yes, these two constructs are related, or no, they're not related. But then you have to discuss what that means, right? In later in the discussion chapter, in chapter 5, usually. So that's where theory comes in, right? It gives you information about what research says on these two constructs, and helps explain the constructs, which and maybe why they're related, but it gives you a framework. It gives you a place to start to talk about the data. Otherwise, you're just stuck with the data and you don't know what to say about it. It can help explain why they're connected. It can that would be correlation, right? Two things are correlated with one another. Not just that the two items are connected. That's what your data analysis tells you they're connected. The theory helps tell you why or how. Theories can help explain that connection. For example, if we're talking about transformational leadership again, it has components like individualized consideration. Individualized consideration means that transformational leaders give this kind of individualized attention to their followers, right? Which may resonate with followers and inspire them to act like the leaders want them to, right? So that's a way that the theory can help explain that connection between transformational leadership and motivation. That was our example. So just an example about how theory can help explain connections. Okay, but that's kind of just, a general nutshell version of what theory is. Theory and the research process. So as you go along, through the research process, how can theory help? Theories can also guide your research, right? They because they let you know what to expect, right, based on what's in the theory. And they have interpretive capacity, like we've been talking about a little bit here. Theories can be used to make predictions. In other words, what do you expect to find in your study? Well, based on the theory, here's what the theory says, right? So based on the theory, you can create hypotheses, you can create, you can define what you expect to find, right? Because here's what this theory says. Now, if you find something different than what the theory says, that doesn't mean, oh my gosh, everything is lost. I mean, my study was a wreck. It doesn't mean that at all. It tells us something very, very valuable. It says that, whatever you studied, maybe the population, or maybe the way you studied it may not, the theory may not apply here, or it may not apply well. And it tells us that, maybe we need to modify the theory. Maybe the theory is not suited. Maybe there's another theory that's suited. If your, study confirms the theory, then that's fine too. That tells you that whatever population or whatever you studied specifically, the theory can apply to that too. So it has this kind of predictive capability, right? That allows you to kind of predict, or at least have a sense of what you might find based on what's in the theory. It has explanatory power too, right? It helps explain things. Again, these connections. You don't know why transformational leadership and motivation are connected. The theories on these two constructs can help you see how they're connected. It could guide research too, right? I mean, it can keep your research on track, in the sense of, if you're using a certain theory, you shouldn't kind of deviate from it, right? So if you find yourself kind of going down rabbit holes, which sometimes people do, they say, oh, this idea is connected to what I'm doing, and this idea is connected to that previous idea, and this other idea is connected to that. And then, you look up and you're 20 ideas away from what you're really studying. If you keep focused on your theory, that can help you stay on track with what you're doing. So it can guide your research too. All right, I think that's it for the research process. Okay, theory and the research questions. Theory can help you develop research questions. The research questions are usually based on some kind of theory, or they're based on previous research to some degree. They're inevitably somewhere theoretically informed. And they can help to define the research question by providing, again, that framework for the investigation. They can also help your selection of variables for what you're actually studying, right? And this helps you craft your research questions. So again, if you're studying, let's say, transformational leadership, well, transformational leadership, what are you going to study within that? Well, that has 4 components. I think it's 4, if I'm remembering correctly. Those components are going to be what you will be studying, right? I think one is individualized consideration. There's a few more, but so individualized consideration as one of the components of transformational leadership would be one of the components that you would be studying and would probably enter into your research questions, right? And many theories have these components, right? These I don't know, that's what I'm calling them, components, tenets or something. They have, parts to them. And usually, if you have your theory aligned with your survey, whatever instrument you're using, usually the components of the theory are what you're going to be studying. So they can help define the research questions, as well as the components that you'll be studying, the variables. And they just generally undergird the research question and the instruments. I mean, instruments are based on theory, surveys, instruments. I mean, they're not developed from nothing or just even previous research. They're often based on theories, the instruments themselves. Okay, now as theory comes into your study, it usually comes in a section called the theoretical framework. And again, the theoretical framework is like theory itself. I mean, it has this term framework attached to it, but sometimes you can use a single theory. And I say keep the theoretical framework as streamlined as possible. If you can use one well-suited theory, that's great. If you need 2, that's fine, but don't start piling on theories. You just need one that kind of theoretically encapsulates what you're doing. And the theoretical framework, if you're using one theory, fine. That's just the way to kind of handle this section then, is to talk a little bit about who developed the theory, the year, obviously have a citation to explain what did they develop the theory to do. Define the theory along with any associated components. Remember, we talked about theories having components. Define any components that are relevant to your theory, to your study. Discuss what researchers have used the theory for. And sometimes this may include, just reviewing a couple studies where researchers have used the theory in the study, similar to how you're going to use it. It shows that, the theory is relevant, and it's relevant to your topic. It's relevant to what you're doing, and researchers are using it, and that it can be used and it's suitable for your theory, right? So part of the theoretical framework is you're making a case, not only describing the theory, but you're making a case for why you're using it. And it's important that you connect your study, the theory to your study, right? How does the study relate to what you're doing? How is it related to what you're trying to find out? And that's the theoretical framework. If you're using, let's say you're using 2 theories, it's the same idea. You would just kind of do the same for both theories in the theoretical framework, and then it just becomes you know, two theories and their ideas that kind of act as your framework. So very, very similar, except that you're using two. And you might have to. So if you did a study on conducted a study like our example, transformational leadership and motivation, you may have two theories. You may have a leadership theory and you may have a motivation theory. And both of those would make up your theoretical framework. Okay. The importance of using relevant theory. The theory has to be relevant to what you're studying, right? And I see this a lot, that people aren't sure what theory to use, so they kind of cast around, and sometimes they're not sure, so they put like 4 or 5 theories in there, or they choose a theory that's not really relevant because they've heard of it. They've heard of social learning theory or something, and yeah, I want to use that. You have to make sure it ties into what you're doing. It's relevant to your study, and they shouldn't be afterthoughts. Remember at the beginning, we talked a little bit about theories can help guide your study when we talked about engagement, you know, and theories of college retention. You know, like at the very beginning, if you think, I want to study college retention of college students, you know, go to studies first, and go to the previous literature, but also go to the studies, go to, you know, go to theories, theories of engagement. So the selection of theory and the thoughts about theory should kind of coincide with your investigation from the beginning, right? That doesn't mean you have to pick it at the very beginning, but you should think about theory as you start to think about your study and the research problem and the research questions, and you know, your sample, your participants, and you know, all those kind of fundamental issues or components of your study. Think about theory too. Sorry, I keep replacing those words with one another. Think about theory as well. So it becomes part of the development of your research problem and your research questions. And that will save you from that kind of, you know, trying to have to pick a theory, you know, after everything else is in place. And then, you know, you may not pick one that's the most relevant for your study because you kind of put it off, right? So make it kind of part of, you know, once you get your study rolling, you know, just kind of think about it near the beginning too. And again, it can help you, like I said, like that example, student engagement or retention of students. You know, looking at that theory of engagement from the beginning, it can start to give you ideas about what to study and where to, you know, where to take your study, the direction it takes. So yeah, let's look at a quick example, another quick example, just talking about the relevant of using relevant theories. Suppose you want to study employee motivation, right? That's a really much researched construct in management and organizational psychology. There are several theories of motivation, right, that researchers use to explain what motivates or what drives employees. So the theory you use depends on what you're studying and why, right? If you want to study like external and internal motivational factors in a certain population, you would need a theory that includes those components, right? So somebody like Herzberg, it's got a motivation theory which involves satisfaction, which is an internal factor, right? Personal satisfaction. But it also includes things like pay and promotion. Those are external factors, right? So if you wanted to look at internal factors, external factors, you would use a theory that covers those two kinds of factors, and that would be something like Herzberg. But there are other theories of motivation, right? There's one called expectancy theory. And this holds that people are motivated by what they expect to receive from their actions, right? Expectancy theory. The theory also includes specific components of valence, expectancy, instrumentality. If the need to examine those components specifically are part of your research problem and part of your study, then you would use expectancy theory, right? So, I mean, the point is that for some of these constructs and some of these things that you'll be looking at, there may be several different theories, right? So there's several motivation theories. It kind of depends on what you're looking at specifically to see which theory is most relevant to what you're doing. And it also has, attaches to kind of the instruments that you use, right? If you're going with Herzberg's motivation theory, external factors, internal factors, you would use an instrument that measures internal factors and external factors. If you're going to use expectancy theory that has those three other components, you would use an instrument that would measure those three components. So that's kind of how your theory, and especially for quantitative studies, how the theories and the instruments and the research questions line up. Okay, and here's the summary, just to summarize. Theory, it's an essential part of the dissertation. So as such, I wouldn't leave it to the end or to of those fundamental parts of the study. I wouldn't kind of push it aside and not think about it and then come back and go, oh, I need a theory. We kind of make it part of, when you're thinking about what you're going to study and why and the direction you're going to take. And I would, think about the theory at those times, because again, it can lead you to the, determine the factors that you want to study, the specific components within a construct. It can lead you to what kind of instrument, the instruments you're going to use. So think about theory early as you're thinking about these other fundamental components of your study. They help generate hypotheses, guide research, interpret data, right? We talked about that. Based on a theory, you can derive hypotheses. You can derive what you might expect to find based on what's in the theory. They help to guide your research, help you stay on track, not go down kind of rabbit holes or get sidetracked if you stay close to your theory. And of course, at the end, when you have your data, when you analyze your data and you have it, it can help you interpret that data for the discussion chapter. Right, as we said, it has explanatory and interpretive capacity. And remember to use theory that's relevant to what you're doing, right? So if you're doing, study on motivation, make sure you have a motivation theory that aligns with, the components of motivation that you're studying. And that's kind of a general overall kind of take on summary on theory for study for social science studies and the dissertation level. I'll open it up to questions, but I also I should have put this at the beginning as well. I apologize for that, but this is who we are real quick. This is what we do. This is some of our contact information. We're a full service dissertation consulting company. We offer all kinds of assistance with statistics, with developmental editing. And by that, I mean helping you to develop the document chapters. We work on single chapters or the whole thing. Helping you to develop the document to get it into submittable form. And once it's submitted, if you have comments on it, we help you adjust the comments. So we offer assistance in a lot of areas. And if you'd like to schedule a free consultation, please do so. It's free, no obligation, but you can talk to somebody about what we offer and if it's right for you. Also, just go to our website, even if you're not interested in assistance. Our website has a lot of resources. It has chapter guides for all the chapters. We have innumerable blogs on chapters on all kinds of topics related to the dissertation, on statistics, on the non-methodological parts. So there's just kind of a wealth of information, a wealth of resources there. We also have webinars archived, not only this webinar, but webinars on methods and the discussion chapter, and all the chapters and all kind of different components of the dissertation. So I encourage you just to go there, just to see what we have, to see if that's could be helpful to you. But I will take your questions now if you do have any questions about the theory as it relates to your study. Okay, no questions. Okay, you're welcome. So yeah, we do offer other webinars, right? On different chapters, on different components of the dissertation. Go to our website, check our webinar schedule, and you know, see if there's another one you would like to or need to attend. But thank you very much for coming, everybody.